one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. First on the agenda, we've got some folks here to have a discussion about the pros and cons of E30. Do you guys want to introduce yourself and who y'all brought with you?
We can certainly do that. Thank you very much for your time this morning. My name is Brad Schultz, Director of Commodities and Risk Management for Glacier Lakes Energy. We have two plants, one in Watertown, one just outside Aberdeen in Mina. We've kind of brought the most of the E30 team with us here. Marcy Cole, who's right behind me. Brad Brenner, who is right behind me. They've done most of the work on the E30 Challenge, which started in South Dakota, and it's kind of gained some nationwide momentum. And then I'm going to say a few words and then introduce our primary speaker here. We've also got H. Oscar Schlenker, one of our board members, and Owen Jones is one of the fathers of the ethanol business and the push for higher blends in the state of South Dakota. Thank you for coming and support us. Sure appreciate that. The main question that we get on the E30 Challenge and get in general is why would we do this? Are you there to gain extra profits or no, we're not in it for the profits. We're there actually to bring attention and raise awareness to the viability of extended blends. The industry as a whole has come up against the blend wall at E10. What we've done with the E30 Challenge is show that you can use E30 not only in flex fuel vehicles, but in most vehicles. And Andy's going to go through some slides that bring that to bear. Why start in northeast South Dakota? Well, I think a part of it's the pioneering spirit. That's where one of the hotbeds of ethanol began, and there's a long and strong history of higher blends and kind of that pioneering spirit and kind of we're going to do what's good for us attitude here. And I think that's come to bear, and you'll see that through some of the slides. I'm going to move on to Andy's presentation. Andy's the owner of Dynotune Speed and Performance in Watertown, South Dakota. It was established in 2003. They specialize in high-performance fuel-injected engines, and you've tested over 15,000 to date. That's all right, or have you hit 20,000 yet?
I don't know about that. We're definitely over the 15,000 bump.
Yep. Anyway, he's a well-known expert in the field. He's been testing ethanol since 2006 in high-performance applications. He's been on the radio and on TV with that, and been. How many states do you think you've gone to talk about that? Certainly all over the Midwest.
Yeah, I got probably 4 or 6 states to go, I guess.
Yeah, he's got the creds. He's also developed a flex fuel conversion kit for use in non-flex fuel vehicles. He's sold over 3,000 of those units all over the United States and some foreign countries. And he's a certified trainer for General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler in their aftermarket tuning program. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
All right. Well, you have to forgive me. This is a little bit of a variation from the presentation I'm used to, so if I stumble, I apologize. So what we'll talk about today, E30 being a viable option in the county fleet vehicles as well as your own vehicles while we're at it. So E30 is what we would call a 94 octane fuel. So it's a premium elevated octane fuel. Your normal premium gas you're paying premium money for is 91 octane. E30 surpasses that. Some places at 85, 86 octane is gaining popularity at the pumps. Many cars don't require the use of premium fuel, but they can actually benefit from them. Some of you may have played with that over the years with your own vehicles. What the petroleum industry is basically trying to do is give us less octane, where as we transition to the newer technology, higher compression ratios, things like that, the automakers need more octane, and the petroleum industry is give us a cheaper solution. So we kind of have this fight going on at the pumps that most of the time the consumer doesn't even realize. So first thing we get out of the way is a parts compatibility issue. Ethanol's got a bad rap over the years. There's kind of a myth or misconception about how good the parts in the vehicles are compatible with ethanol and higher blends of ethanol content. Rubber, seals, metals being used in the manufacturing process have been ethanol compatible since the early 90s. It's just simply a non-issue. If we take a factory flex fuel vehicle and put a parts list next to that of a non-flex fuel vehicle, you'll see that most everything is essentially the same. A lot of times the only differences are calibration with engine control, computer programming. That is the only difference. So hard parts is just a non-issue anymore. So the next concern we have, if we're going to run higher blends of ethanol, is check engine light. Kind of sets fear in a lot of people's eyes. They don't know what it is. You feel like a loss of control. The little orange light lights up in the dash. When that little light comes on, it can mean up to 2,000, well actually over 2,000 codes that can be triggered by failing engine systems, transmission braking systems. All those things can trigger that check engine light. So that being said, E30 is never going to be the direct or root cause of that light coming on. We've done lots and lots of data log miles, things like that we'll talk about a little bit, but I can confidently say that has never been a direct cause of the check engine light illuminating. The diagnostic process, it has a little bit of a variation for the average technician to work on, but one of my things that I'm here for is I'm kind of the liaison between the automotive industry and the ethanol industry. One of the things I pick on about the ethanol people is that, we haven't done a good job of educating the technicians working on the vehicles. What is ethanol actually doing? What is it not doing? Things like that. So part of that process is the education that we're giving. So since we've been starting that in Watertown especially, a lot of the guys that are the technicians working on the cars every day, they're actually using it in their own vehicles. So the next graph that you'll see, it's kind of hard to explain in such a short duration, but your engine operates basically plus or minus 25%. It can add and subtract fuel as you're driving down the road multiple times a second. So it has these adaptive strategies, and so it can, if it knows that we have a little higher ethanol content or a little less ethanol content, it can actually add and subtract in that. It's also the same reason that you can drive in 40 degree below zero weather or 100 degree weather and it still runs the same because of all these adaptive strategies. Pretty advanced stuff. So at the end of the day, the concern is if we decide to use it, is it really going to work in my car, or what all takes place? Like I said, we've done lots and lots of testing over multiple years now. I think we started on this in the end of 2015. So I mean, these are kind of some older slides here, but that fueling strategy, like I said, we can adapt plus or minus 25%. E30 is going to give it an 8 to 10%, 12% variable over existing fuel that's used. So we're nowhere near triggering check engine light, which is the kind of the big concern, the only concern that people would have that they don't understand. So we're not even approaching that. Just a quick case study, 2015 Dodge Ram. Glacial Lakes approached me and they said, hey, we got a problem. We're curious if we can use E30 and why does it work or why wouldn't it work, things like that. So I said, look, I'll check into it. I'm not going to take any money or anything until I know the answer for sure. And so I started out with this. I basically said, Dad, give me your truck. I need to do some testing. So the 2015 Dodge Ram, basically a brand new truck I started with, 2,500 miles. So since day one, or since we started this, we were using E30 in this truck. And what we saw immediately, one of the things I do in the high performance world, I have a chassis dyno, so we can immediately test horsepower and torque. I use that piece of equipment every day. And so what we found immediately, by just changing fuel, we can pick up 7 horsepower, 9 foot-pounds of torque. How does that really equate to, what does it matter to the average Joe? It gives you the ability to pull trailers and not downshift, things like that. We can do more work with less pedal effort. So that, equates, or can equate to fuel economy gains. So one of the things we look at is a fuel trim. So the fuel trim, like I said, in a real short summation here, that plus or minus 25% of adaptation, this is basically an Excel spreadsheet. So that tells me how that engine is running over a long period of time. As we see these numbers in here, these numbers have probably been hit 2,500 to 3,500 times. And that's a data log of how many, what the actual fuel trim, how much fuel that it's adding. That's 8 to 10 is the highest number that we see on there. Once again, 25 is going to trigger a check engine light. So we're nowhere near causing that check engine light that we're so worried about causing. Once again, to recap on that That's kind of that graph on the back, that's plus or minus 25, and that 8 to 12% is typically what we can add in those scenarios. So we're not approaching that check engine light trigger. So the next concern we have is fuel economy. And E85 has kind of given us a poor case study of what happens when we start using higher blends of ethanol. And I'll say this, I guess when the E85 came out, every flex fuel vehicle that was designed is a gas engine that can run on ethanol. So they never had technology that would allow E85 to really shine that we could run gas in, so it kind of had a poor start. But E30 has been a great happy medium because we can use that in any vehicle. You don't have to have flex fuel, and we're able to see significant gains or at least stabilized gains in fuel economy because it's a premium. That octane that we talked about at the beginning, what this chart here shows is knock retard. Once again, we don't have a lot of time to get into this, but that tells us the quality of fuel that we're seeing in your engine. As you drive down the road, there's the sensors on the car, they're called knock sensors, and they say how much fuel, or excuse me, how much timing, how well is that engine running, and if it sees that the octane in the engine is not sufficient, it can actually...
One sec, real
Go
quick.
ahead.
Come on in, guys. It's government day today in the courthouse, so
All right.
come on in, guys. You can come walk right around here and kind of take in some of the conversation. Right now on the agenda, we're having a discussion about the benefits of E30 and whether or not it would be an option for Brown County to use them in their fleet. So we have some of the folks from Glacial Lakes and the industry in here, so come on in and you can come all the way around here.
So one of the trends that we see with the higher blends of ethanol, the E30 for instance, is this knock retards. Once again, as we're driving down the highway and we have a lesser than desirable octane in our car, it actually diminishes performance. And you'll never notice it, you'll never hear it, you'll never see it, other than maybe some fuel economy swinging one way or the other. So what we show here is the actual, when we did this, we did these data loggers, they spent $25,000 on these things, and we put them in multiple vehicles for an extended period of time. And one of the things we were watching was this knock retard. So it tells us how much it's trying to diminish the performance of the engine. So you see with the higher blends of ethanol, that knock retard, or that pulling the performance back, doesn't happen near as often as it would on 10% blends. And we're not talking high performance vehicles. This is 07 GMC, which you may have in your own garage, Suburbans, things like that. Same type of concept. The next question is that higher ethanol content, does it mean higher consumption? Once again, we have the ability to do more work with less pedal effort, causing there's kind of a happy medium there, an offset. The newer vehicles that we have, your fleet is probably, what do you roll vehicles, 3 to 5 years typically? You haven't...
Dirk, what would you say in the...
We have 20 altogether.
What fleet are you?
On the county highway.
Okay.
And 10 of them are like 2011 or newer.
Okay.
And 10 of them should have been thrown in the junk heap about 10
Yeah,
years ago.
you always got to have some you keep around just for good times, right? But as we advance forward, the automakers are making, and we hear it on just the ads that we hear on TV. We're talking about higher compression, variable valve timing, twin turbos, things like that. All that newer technology all embraces this octane. So transition forward to the newer vehicles, we really can utilize that extra octane. They'll still run on the other stuff, but we can actually start to see the performance diminish because of that lack of that octane that we talked about. The only the other variation, we talked about the cold weather, things like that. As you transition into winter, fall, things like that, we kind of think of the old school where you got to pull the choke and shut the air off to deliver more fuel. So as there's lots of variations to fuel economy that people don't really keep in mind. But as you get to that 0 degrees or 20 degrees below zero, it actually takes almost twice as much fuel for your engine to start and run. So things like that can definitely affect fuel economy. But when we did our testing, we did it over a long period of time, not just put in a tank today, check it tomorrow, and assume that was our full test. So we did it over long term. So yeah, so if we say, yeah, let's do it, I want to try it in my own vehicle, we want to try it in the county fleet, things like that. Blends up to E30, you can use them anytime. So I don't know what the availability is here in town for certain myself, but you know, if you say I put it in there yesterday and I'm leaving town, I want to top it off, you can use any blend you need to as you need to. It's fully adaptive, so you don't really have to concern yourself with, once I switch to this, I have to use this. Although as far as the adaptive strategies, things like that, it actually does better if you run multiple tanks in a row, because it learns that extra octane is in there. So yeah, you can do whatever you want to blend in between there up to 30%.
I believe we've got 4 blender pumps.
4 blender pumps? Okay, all right.
Yeah, we've got a slide on that.
Okay. So yeah, when we did the E30 challenge, like I said, there was a multi-angle approach there. We wanted to, educate the general public on what it does, the availability of the good benefits of, higher blends of ethanol. Gathered all the data from the cars to, give good hard evidence that it's not an issue, and we are able to see some gains. Get rid of the myths that seem to be floating around about E30, and then get the consumer to change, use the higher blend so we can start using our own product that we're making right here in South Dakota. And we kind of made a prototype strategy for the industry to roll this out nationwide. These data loggers, like I talked about here, they plug into the diagnostic port. When we did our testing, we basically set these up, plugged them into the diagnostic port, and we told the consumers, they had them in there for, a lot of times it was a couple of months, and it recorded every 1 second to 2 times a second the engine data that was in the vehicle. So we have these huge Excel spreadsheets that we can filter lots and lots of data through, and it wasn't any specialized drivers or anything like that. It was average consumers, males, females, old, young, whatever. And so we gathered all that data up to make sure, and we got a good realistic comparison of what would be going on. So we had 50 different makes and models, imports, domestics, cars, trucks, SUVs, pretty much across the board when we were testing. We'd run 3 tanks of E10, then 3 tanks of E30, and run them consecutively and get the data. Yeah, we back to 04. It will work in vehicles back to 96, no problem at all. It actually works in vehicles earlier than that, but the adaptive strategy really came out in 1996. The government mandated how the fuel injection worked, so that really when it starts to shine. Our data loggers that we purchased didn't work past earlier than 2004, just technology differences. And then before we even tested them, we made sure the vehicles are in proper operational condition, things like that, and before we let them loose. So, our 4 results, this will be the first time I've seen the updated ones here lately, but our own our own test that we do with the data logger, we had 80,000 miles logged, so it's a pretty significant test with our own. Since that rolled out, this is the calculated value, but I would bet it's probably pretty close, but 40 million miles of consumer-driven miles that, that we've had. We haven't seen any complaints. I'm in contact with the shops on a daily basis. If we were seeing issues, part of the thing was call me, let me know what's going on, let's figure it out. If we do have an issue, we want to know. We just have not seen that, and now it's been a year and a half, 2 years. So, I mean, if we were going to see some issues, we definitely would by now on a mass basis. Typically, they're seeing, $3 to $5 per tank fuel savings. Yeah, their retailers are also seeing some gain in market share and stuff from the a little bit of down-home American feel there.
Absolutely, they've added blender pumps to meet the demand.
Yep. Brad, you want to talk about miles sold?
Yep, sure can.
Millions gallons.
And that's kind of where the 40 million miles came from there. We've sold nearly 2 million gallons since the challenge began. And as you can see in the left-hand column, the local retailers were selling in the neighborhood of 20,000 gallons per month. That immediately jumped up to over 100,000 gallons per month, and that gain has held even without putting any extra financial incentive behind it. We just ran the incentive for the first 2 to 3 months, and what I found the most heartening of the whole thing was the gains in sales were there, and the retailers in town added to meet the demand. It was really kind of heartening. So it's gaining widespread appeal. We're getting nationwide, including out of Washington D.C., attention on the program. The bottom line is, as Andy went through, it's safe for vehicles, it's economical for vehicles, it increases demand for U.S. produced ethanol, which in turn improves demand for our local corn. It's a grassroots program that we think is going to do nothing but grow from this point forward. Next slide it does talk about, and you're exactly right, there's 4 spots right at Aberdeen to buy at the Airport Travel Center, the Bond Express, the Sea Express, and North Central Farmers Elevators Cart Roll. You can buy it in Groton and in Frederick and in Warren.
All right. Any questions on the presentation?
Well, I've used it for as long as I could. I've never had any problems in any vehicle. None whatsoever.
That's great.
We found a lot of closet users that give us, 10 years of 10 years of data that, we can't really verify, but we've had lots of
I got a
that.
2013, it's not flex fuel, that I've got 60-some thousand miles on now.
Yep. And employees and board members were not allowed to be in the official challenge, but I took the challenge with a vehicle that said specifically the gas cap, premium fuel only, and I worked my way up to E30. I use it whenever I possibly can, but often I put a lot of miles on throughout the Midwest. If I've got to run E10, I don't have a problem switching back and forth. I use E15 if that's the highest blend I get. I use E20 if that's the highest I can get. And again, I try to plan to get E30. I've had no problem with that, and I've noticed the same economic gains that are highlighted in there. So I'm a personal proponent.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
I switched that.
We got plenty of people, our board members, our members, lots of them using all their small engine and that. So, increased blends and E30 are here to stay.
Any other questions, comments?
Comment. I just need to say I have a 2016 Lincoln MKX that runs on E50. I have a 2015 Dodge truck that runs on E50. And I do it because it's a homegrown fuel. I don't do it because of efficiency, but it is efficient. And like you said, you can go to any other fuel you want to if you're traveling. Yeah, there might be a little bit difference in gas mileage because the computers haven't had a chance to catch up, but you don't ever have a problem.
I even filled mine with the E85 once by mistake. Still no problem. Not a problem.
A lot of vehicles you will start to get check engine lights and stuff as we approach that 65-70% blend range, but so I wouldn't advocate that, but there's definitely plenty of testimony for that too.
And if we had another couple hours, we'd go through the whole process. And trust me, we don't want to take your time up with that. But there was but Andy and Marcy and Brad spent a tremendous amount of time getting buy-in from the retailers, from the shops, and just spending time with them one-on-one to get them comfortable with what we were doing. So we really weren't battling like this. So instead of just saying we're going to do it, we're going to do it with you. And it really worked. And having somebody with Andy's stature involved, that really helped us out a lot.
So Dirk, when you order gasoline, can he just tell North Central, wherever he's getting his gasoline from, that he wants that blend and they'll mix it that way in his tank, or how does that work?
I'm not sure.
I'm sure we could do that. Right now we're using E10, have been forever seems like.
Sure.
And so I would imagine, and there's some price savings of roughly 28 cents for E10 to the normal unleaded. I would imagine, since I noticed you had North Central on your list there, I'm sure we could get it delivered if we decide to go that way.
Sure.
Is North Central supplying the county with their fuel now?
Yes. I got a voucher this morning.
Yes, as you can see, they're heavily involved in that, and they're tremendous partners of ours, since we built the Mina plant and beyond.
Well, with Brown County being one of the biggest corn producers in the nation, and the ethanol plants have just done tremendous things for this county, I think we should be leading the way and, investing in ourselves.
What makes the corn still not very good?
No, but think about it would be without the ethanol demand.
What was the issue with the mechanical issue on a 2014 Cadillac? There was no mechanical issue except the 2014 Cadillac. Am I reading that correct on the E30 calendar?
So this is where I have slides in front of me that I haven't seen before. I don't know. Oh, okay, so that way, yeah, actually, that was a scenario, what happens is you change the E30 or any higher ethanol blends, the check engine light comes on, and immediately everybody just blames the ethanol content, right? So that particular instance, we had a 2014 Cadillac, I forgot this was in here. The 2014 Cadillac, 40,000 miles. It actually had a catalytic converters actually failed on the car. They started giving efficiency codes, and the dealership initially said, well, we can't warranty that, it's because of the ethanol. And I said, well, I would believe that. And so we went back and forth, and the dealer said they will warranty it. And he continued to use E30 since then, and this has been a year and a half or something, and he hasn't had any check engine lights since. So this, cars are mechanical, stuff fails, and so we can't always initially point right to that. And that's why I want to do so much testing to determine if it was actually causing problems or if it was, getting blamed for problems that weren't necessarily anything to do with it.
All right.
Rachel,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that Governor Dugard has actually just rolled out E30 at Brookings and Pier and Sioux Falls at those locations for the state as well. Now, at this point in time, the instruction is, let's just use it for flex fuel vehicles, because they were only using E10. However, they're positioning themselves to work on a tri-state level with the EPA and Governor Reynolds and Governor Ricketts from Nebraska and Iowa respectively, to position themselves so that they can, in state fleets, go ahead and use E30. So you will actually be kind of the tip of the spear in a governmental, along with Watertown to take this forward. It's a great partnership, because they don't have an office here, I don't think, that they're using that here.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners on the presentation information? Any comments from those in attendance? I guess I feel strongly enough about it that I can't make the motion, but I would think that we should accept that E30 challenge and be on the forefront of this, invest in our taxpayers, invest in our farmers, in the ethanol plants here in Brown County. So I don't know if anybody wants to...
We're ready for the motion? I'd make it.
Okay. What would that motion be, Commissioner Fishback?
Tell me what it should say.
I guess we should lead the way and do what we said to put E30 in our tanks, maybe touch base with North Central, see if they can blend it and bring it to us. And
I'd like to just make a comment.
Yeah.
We're talking specific to the thing that I know about, is keeping old pickups running around, but our fuel supply, or our gasoline supply, is the sheriff's office and emergency management, all those folks. And I'm not discounting anything you just said here, but I think we should at least have a conversation and make sure they're aware. It's one thing if your old pickup, heaven forbid, something happens. If we're talking law enforcement or emergency responders, we want to be real solid with that. That's my only comment. It has nothing to do with the presentation or how I feel about it.
Yep.
It's just my objective's a little different than those folks.
Understandably so. So we actually had our local law enforcement on multiple sides have tried it and utilized it, and they run into a situation where if I'm on the edge of the county and I can't get it, then I just need it, And those are the scenarios that we got to prepare for. And if they're got a tar troll or something, then they just got to get fuel they need. It's insignificant how the engine operates. So in that older equipment, an emergency situation, you need it to run, you need it to go right now. I totally understand that, and I don't have any question or qualms to tell you that's going to inhibit any of those vehicles, older or newer.
You only have one tank for gas?
Yep.
Hey, Mike. And I have spoken to the sheriff about it, and he had no issues with giving it a shot too, so that's a great call though.
Can the motion be, you gave a valid argument, about how many different things. And he just buys fuel for whatever type we need, where we need it, and then we take the bid. Can we just say that we would support it and test it in our vehicles? Because I don't want to say you have to use it and have us not be able to run some vehicles.
Well, I think you could say you have to use it in the ones that qualify. I wouldn't use it in your older vehicles that...
I hate to require it, because we're all over the county and it's not there.
Well, if it's not there, then it would be
I just like to say, I'd prefer something on the testing side.
If there's a logistics thing with adding another tank or
Yeah.
something like that, I mean, that's not the end of the world here. If we have to come to that point, obviously, we
We're
don't want to
concerned
have...
about it with the older vehicles.
Right, multiple, we don't want to have any more
Sure.
potential sources than we have to have.
Right.
But
Scott might have something here.
Scott, did you?
I just a question on like small engines, like generators and stuff like that. Where do we fall in with that, with going to a multiple blend? Is that stuff compatible, or are we gonna have to buy that at a station?
Good point. I'm not a small engine guy to say that. What we've had back from actuals and testimony, once again, it's a non-issue. I like my own mower, and I own a towing company also, so we have generators that sit for 6 months at a time, or airbag, support stuff, and it sits and sits and sits, and then when you need it now, and we haven't had any issues at all. So that's my own personal testimony. I can't tell you that I'm a small engine expert by any means, but I do know that we've had, generally good luck with that.
Lots of folks around use it in all their small engines with no problem. And actually, our industry has pushed back just a little bit on some of these retailers that kind of talk about the, hey, don't use ethanol, that are promoting some of the additives and some of that. So we've kind of gone at them and had some pretty good success at changing some of the advertising from some of the big box stores.
Well, we found those small engines, we tend to collect water in your fueling system, whether they're filled like gas cans or whatnot. We usually add some seafoam to all of our small engines to help eliminate those issues, which I'm sure would work the same.
I use seafoam in my generator and things like that. That's a great product.
Yes.
Perhaps what the commission's motion ought to be is just to direct the appropriate department heads to develop a plan here in the next 30 to 45 days to possibly move towards the E30.
Very good.
And that way you can do a little more research and you can see what
I
you
don't
need
think we have
per
the exact
department.
wording
That
yet,
sounds
so I think
good.
we should,
Yep.
we could start with
And
that.
if as you work towards that and you have some problems with resources or
Who's the best
or
person
some
to
of those
contact?
things, contact Brent.
Okay.
And we'll support you on anything you need.
Are there other counties using this right now?
Coddington.
Coddington
Other
is
than
working on it.
Coddington?
They've got some of the same challenges.
Okay.
They support it, but they've got some of the same logistical challenges. Kind of as Andy was saying, it's here and there, and actually, it's kind of one of those things where the bigger it gets, the more it's going to go there. So we've got to get people on the cutting edge. I mean, and the city of Watertown's been a real big proponent of that. We've got the trolley is using it there, and they've got, we put some billboards on the back of it promoting E30.
And the electrical co-ops, Coddington.
Absolutely. Yep.
Do you foresee any problem with availability on E30 if you're going to push this and more counties and more people start using it as far as the availability down the future?
We think it's going to do nothing but improve, but it can be a challenge now, and that's why I said if you're having problems getting it, we can help do that. One thing that we're promoting in the state and primarily near our plants is we're trying to get folks to retailers to make on-farm deliveries, and that's starting to take off a little bit too. So.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that then, making
Yeah,
the
I like
motion to ask the department heads to go ahead and move towards a plan of how to develop the...
Yeah, let's start with that, we can look at something else later.
Okay.
I understand the county has 4 blender pumps, is that right?
Aberdeen has
Oh, I thought the
gas
county had
stations that have 4, yeah, and then... Okay. So we've got a motion from Fishback to go ahead and move towards that. Second from Feldheim. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Well, thank you guys so much for the time. Make sure we've got I think I got all your contact information. I'm sure we'll be in touch with some questions. Welcome. Do we have Central here, or do we have Groton?
A mixture.
Okay, why don't we go around and see who's joined us today, and tell us your name, what grade you're in, and which school you're at. Welcome, you guys. Appreciate you taking the time to come. I'm Rachel Kipley. Been on the commission 5 years. And my husband and I farm north of town. I'll let the other commissioners introduce themselves.
Doug Feldheim, I'm the new commissioner, a little less than 3 years.
Tom Fishback, I'm the oldest. Warner.
How many years, Tom?
Too many.
Dwayne Sutton, I'm in my 9th year.
Nancy Hanson, I'm in my 23rd year.
I'm Maxine Fisher, the county auditor, and I'm in my 45th year with the county, but not as auditor.
And I'm Gary Vetter, Commission Assistant HR Director.
We've also got our former state attorney.
Larry Laverne, former state attorney.
Any questions you had on county government, or just kind of getting started? Oh, hey, we got also... Oh, yeah, sorry. Mark's our highway superintendent.
This is better than Thorson's class, isn't it?
Derek, you're liable to get in trouble starting now.
Well, kids right there, and I just saw him up there.
According to our schedule, other group of students want to come in about now.
Okay, you want to
Okay.
swap? Yep,
Yep.
appreciate you guys
Thank you.
taking part in the discussion. Take care, have a great day. We'll bring in the next group and then we'll get out of the agenda item. Okay, yours in there?
I got lots of...
If you guys want to come right up, oh, I guess it's just a bid.
Go Tigers.
So we'll let them introduce themselves first. Next on the agenda, we're going to do the RFPs for Brown County Clubhouse concessions.
We're a little behind, Paul.
Come on in, guys. Come on in. You can walk right along here and listen into the meeting.
Good plan.
I'll just stay here and be...
You can come right around here and we should be able to fix it. Morning. Good. How are you? Great.
Mr. Thorson, how are you? Good.
All right, we are about to do our next agenda item, but before we do, why don't we introduce, you guys want to introduce yourselves? Tell us your name, what year you are, and which school you go to?
Brandon Anderson. I'm graduating this year. I go to Grove St. Jeff. I'm Sarah Shabazz. I'm a senior, graduating this year.
I'm Hannah Lewandowski, I'm a senior and I also go to Grove.
I'm Brenna Johnson, I'm a senior and I go to Grove.
I'm Mary Nelson, I'm a senior and I'm graduating this year.
I'm Jennifer Schinkel, I'm a senior and I'm from Groton. I'm Carly Stangy, I'm a senior and I go to Groton.
Justin Vargas. I'm a senior and I go to Groton.
I'm Ellie Ford, I'm a senior and I go to Groton. I'm Taylor Heckler, I'm a senior and I go to Central.
Well, welcome you guys, appreciate you coming. I'm Rachel Kipley, I've been on the board 5 years, and I farm just north of town.
I'm Nancy Hanson, I've been on the board 23 years.
I'm Dwayne Sutton, and I'm in my 9th year as a commissioner.
Tom Fishback, been here a long time.
Doug Fowler, 3 years as commissioner.
Gary Vetter, Commission Assistant HR Director.
Maxine Fisher, county auditor. I've been here a long time, too.
Dirk Rogers, highway superintendent, about 11 years through 2 stints, I guess.
Larry Laverne, former state's attorney, currently a deputy state's attorney.
We appreciate you guys coming in and learning a little more about your county government. We'll go on with our agenda. If you have questions, just let us know, okay? Next on the agenda, we have the RFP for the Brown County Clubhouse concessions. Maxine.
Request for proposals for Brown County Fair, aka beer sessions during the fair. Proposals will be received, commissioned on behalf of Brown County Fair Board, Resource Office 25 for contract to operate concessions during Fair Week at the Clubhouse, aka Beer Gardens. Such proposals will be received until 5 p.m. October 13th and opened 9 a.m. or roughly October 17th. Proposals shall be, let me see, Brown County reserves the right to accept or reject any or all proposals and to waive any irregularities therein. You have one proposal. It's presented by the Aberdeen Hockey Association. Okay. Okay, they didn't really fill out the contract. Okay, Aberdeen Hockey Association is proposing $8 of each case be paid to Brown County. The remaining $7 to be used as allowance for entertainment to pay a portion of the actual entertainment. Aberdeen Hockey Association will pay all costs over and above the $7 per case credit.
Can I direct you to the third page? Under number 2, I think is the language you're looking for.
Okay. Which page? Oh, here it is, sorry. Okay. Proposal bid amount. The Aberdeen Hockey Association proposes a payment to Brown County Fair Board of $15 for every case of beer and/or malt beverage purchased, invoiced to AHA for use during the fair. Second bullet, the Aberdeen Hockey Association proposes a payment to Brown County of $75 for every keg of beer or malt beverage purchased, invoiced to Hockey for use during the fair. Please note, Hockey does not anticipate selling any keg products. Third bullet, the Aberdeen Hockey Association proposes a payment to Brown County of 30% of retail price of every case of pop, soft drink, and water purchased, invoiced to Hockey during the fair. Bullet 4, Aberdeen Hockey Association proposes a payment to Brown County for commissions on the gross receipts of concessions during the fair for number 1, all items other than those already defined above, and 2, after payment of South Dakota sales tax.
Is it commission?
And the commission is 15% on all sales between 0 and 10,000, 30% on all sales between 10,000 and up.
And I believe that language is standard for the other two
Yes.
locations, right? Okay, any questions on that?
What was that $8 case you started out with?
What was that?
What was that?
You want to explain that?
Yep. So in the past, sorry, I'll step up here, it's probably easier. In the past, the arrangement between the county and the operations of the clubhouse is we would pay the cost of the bands out of the $15 per case that the county was receiving. And when you're able to see the whole document, we talk about how much that entertainment has cost in the past. And typically that entertainment historically has been between $7.20 and $12.83 per case. That's what it's cost the county to put entertainment in that venue. And what we're saying is we want to ensure that it's better than any of the prior 3 years, and we're asking $10 of each case to go towards the entertainment. We intend to bring in a different level of entertainment, and we're willing to subsidize what the county has provided in the past to provide a higher level of entertainment and hopefully drive additional patrons into the facility. So, to summarize, it's a better, the county is actually getting a larger share than they've been getting in the past.
So would it be appropriate today, because we still have to finalize the contract, do you guys want to just go ahead and authorize the acceptance of it, but yet we can still fix that contract as needed? Because this isn't the contract, it's just awarding the bid, or do we need to put it off and let Eric and the folks that deal with it?
You should probably defer it for review so that each of you get a copy.
Okay.
And
then we can call if there's any questions,
actually draft the contract.
do it with it.
Based on what they've proposed, right? I'll make a motion to reverse.
Okay, we've got a motion from Sutton and a second from Hanson. Any questions on that? We're going to go ahead and defer this a week and see what we come up with. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Just let us know what you need us to
Thank
help
you,
with.
guys.
You bet.
Yep,
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here.
Thank you, guys.
Next on the agenda, we've got the bid for the fire alarm upgrade for the annex in the courthouse. We're giving you
more than one bid there. Okay, notice to fire alarm contractors. Notice is hereby given that sealed bids will be received in the chambers of Brown County Board of Commissioners, Brown County Courthouse, until the hour of 9:10, October 17, 2017. At said time, all and place. All bids will be publicly opened, read, and considered by the Brown County Board of Commissioners for project replacement of existing smoke and heat detectors with bases, pole stations, and horn strobes for the Brown County Courthouse Annex Complex located at 5 Market Street. No proposal will be unless accompanied by a second cashier's check or bank draft in the amount of 5% of the total amount of the bid that has been issued by a national or state bank authorized to do business in South Dakota, or a bid bond in the amount of 10% of the total amount of bid payable without condition to Brown County as a guarantee of good faith in entering into a contract if so awarded. Brown County will give notice to the successful bidder that his proposal has been accepted, and said bidder shall within 10 days thereafter enter into a contract with Brown County and furnish a performance or payment bond in accordance with the bid as accepted. Also one bid here. It is from VIGI Security Systems of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They've got a breakdown. Digi design fee, $112, $353.85. 10% extra equipment, $55, $76.54. And replace wire cost, $15,830 for a grand total of $133,760.39. And then that did not include, okay, and this page, they didn't sign this, but they've got their bid bond. Equipment, they're saying, is $76,298.07. Labor, $80,192.72 for a grand total of $156,490.79. $56,490.79.
So that's, why is that, where do we have two figures? Where do we have the 133 and the 156? $23,000 difference.
Had we had a guesstimate of what we thought this was going to cost?
Had no clue what this.
No clue, okay.
I didn't know smoke alarms were that big.
There's no South Dakota company to do this.
Not hook it up to the Gallagher system.
Okay.
I think these are all, that's,
So it's the 133 and the 156, is that what you're saying?
No, 133, and then you add the labor and
project
equipment, and the total, grand total is
133, then you add the
156,490.
equipment. That can't be right.
That doesn't add up.
The numbers
Should we
don't seem...
They don't add
Then
up.
they're not adding for me, I don't know, do I
Should we
look at
defer it?
Defer it and I can check into it.
I'd entertain a motion to
I'd
defer
move to
this.
defer it.
Moved by Fishback.
Second.
Seconded by Sutton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Closer to
For that one.
350,000.
Next on the agenda, we've got Paul Denner to discuss Brown County 14. Paul, are you with us?
I guess so.
How are ya?
Alive?
Good.
Got a long meeting today, huh?
Yeah. Getting a lot accomplished.
No rest for the wicked.
So what's going on with 14?
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. I guess I'm here to complain a little bit, and then to question some of your actions. About, let's say, a year and a half ago, just in passing comment, Dirk and I visited. I stop in and see him every once in a while, which he knows, and I think one of the last times I was in and questioned something they did was spraying, killing the grass along the edges of County 14. When there's nice grass growing, I kind of hate to see us destroyed and then weeds come in, but he explained to me the reasoning for it, and it was to work on the road, and I agreed. Although I didn't like it, but I agreed. But anyway, we talked about the future of Brown County 14 a year and a half ago, and he talked at that time, well, I don't have it in recording, and Dirk, correct me if I'm somewhat wrong, but I think at that time Dirk said to me, Mr. Rogers, should I call you Dirk? He said they thought they'd probably start resurfacing 14 a mile probably south of the North Dakota border,
and continue on to highway marker 123, which is, I think, County 11. And then the next 3 miles was done a few years ago. And at that time, I don't think he made any commitment on the, from 126 on south. Probably since that time, though, we talked about what the future 14 and the future of the soybean plant. And as I drove in this morning, I got to thinking maybe we shouldn't do anything with them last 5-6 miles, because if we're going to continue to not put load limits on it in the spring, why would you resurface it unless you resurface it to a degree to hold the loads, because that stretch has never had load limits on it. But anyway, that was the way I understood Dirk at that time. If there's some change, Dirk,
That sounds pretty close.
That's pretty close.
Yep.
I guess when they started working on 14, we traveled 14 quite a little to the number 5, the Frederick Heckler Road, then go west to our pastures. Of course, they evaded that stretch a little because they were working on it. And as they get progressing further south and got in my area, I guess I noticed something a little different, and then they moved out, and I contacted Dirk one day, and I said, Dirk, what's the deal on chip sealing instead of putting a new surface on some stretches in my area of 14 up to County 11 or 123rd? And I think the comment was probably out of money. And I said, well, I don't think that's very good planning. I said, I don't know how you do it when you go on your own instead of contracting. I assume you made plans to do County 14 with a new surface from 1 mile south of the North Dakota border to County 11. And I figured in your plan was to do it all. I guess I didn't expect you would just chip seal part of it at the south end, because for 14 straight miles you never, well, I guess you did chip seal a little bit further north, but I think that was done because I think it had been resurfaced a while ago too. I don't know. And so Dirk and I talked about it a little bit, and I said, why don't you come out and show me and tell me why? And I'm going to say that was 6 weeks ago, a month, 6 weeks ago, and then 3 weeks ago at Kipley, you and I talked about it. And I said, why don't you call me and come out? And a week ago, I talked to Dwayne about it. And evidently, you don't make house calls because nobody called, nobody came out. I didn't really want to...
If I can interrupt for just a minute, Paul, I drove it the next day and stopped in, you weren't home.
Okay, so you didn't call me.
I didn't call.
Okay.
I
drove
drive
up
it at least once a week. I may not have stopped, but I do drive it.
Well, I wished you'd have stopped and talked to me, because I would have liked to win. I'm not bragging, but I walk every day a little bit, and I walk County 14, and it just kind of irritates me a little bit as I walk it and walk where it's been resurfaced and walk where it's been chip sealed, and for every time you start and stop chip sealing to new surface, it's not bad, but there's a rough spot. Another issue in let's see, I had it wrote down, at mile marker 119 to 121.3, 119.5 to 121.3, you chip sealed only, and there's an area in there that I think there's at least 2 new culverts that are kind of rough. Further south, you put on a new surface over the new culverts, and they're a lot smoother. So I'm just here kind of curious of the reasoning, and if you made the plans to do it from, oh, by the way, I think you did start at 3 miles, which you, I'm sure, all know. Instead of 1 mile south of the North Dakota border, you didn't start till 3 miles south, which I guess I didn't question that. That was your decision. But when you started that, didn't you plan on doing the whole works to County 11? I mean, what made you change your plans? You did 14 straight miles, and then in the next 6 miles, you did about half of it.
Thanks, Dirk. Do you want to go ahead and address that?
Sure. Couple things. First off, I've never said that we didn't have any money. I don't use that as an excuse. I might say something like that goes in a circle and sounds like a politician, but I don't say that we don't have enough money, because I believe we should be talking about what we do with what we have. You're correct in, when the first started talking about that, we were going to start at the North Dakota line and come all the way to Road 11. And just about everything, like when I budget for it, or the presentation I gave last Tuesday with the 5-year plan, that map right behind the gentleman with the hat, you're all right. It's just, so that's got all the stuff on it. I almost guarantee you that that won't be done exactly like what's on there. Because when we go to evaluate some of those roads, there's going to be miles in there that don't need to be don't need to necessarily be overlaid, or they'll make it a couple more years without that. The north 3 miles of that, 1.5 miles of it's going to get milled into gravel. The other 1.5 miles, I'm not sure what we're going to do with it, but it's not going to be paver overlaid. It'll get patched and maybe some blade lay on it. The first mile south of Road 5 is another one that didn't need asphalt. He brought that one up. We chip sealed that one. And then there's a few spots down there between 9 and 11 that I didn't think needed to be overlaid. They're not perfect, but you know, I think that it works out fine, and I think it's consistent with what we've done in a whole bunch of other places. Matter of fact, what you're describing is more of a rarity. What we did on there is actually more rare than what we've done since I've been back. Road 6 south of US 12, that's 14 miles. 10.5 of it got paved, some of it got blade laid, some of it got chip sealed. Road 20 going north-south of Claremont, they really got a bunch of crap up there. That going south of that, we patched the potholes, blade laid a little bit, and chip sealed it. We didn't even take the paver up there. North of that, it's kind of similar to the stretch between 9 and 11. So if I would have gone in and we would have put a to say that we would have overlaid that entire thing, it probably wouldn't have happened. We're going to address the whole thing. I've got a plan for stretching the life out of the whole 23 miles. But if we were going to do what you're suggesting, I probably only would have got down to about Road 7 and we'd have stopped. And that'd have been it. So when I go into it, if I pick out that road segment and I can come up with a mile in there that we can do, there's basically 5 different things that I'll be looking at when I go into one of those road segments. First thing is, do we have to mill it up? That's the extreme end on one. If there's gravel on it, we're probably going to mill it up, because the cost of getting the gravel off of it is almost the same as milling it up. And then after you mill it up, then we'll decide whether or not it's going to be a blotter or it's going to get a full-blown mat on it. The other combinations are anything from just patching potholes. If the potholes are concentrated in a specific area, you blade laid over that, and you might not have to pave it. You might just chip seal it and it'll be fine. If you have a road where you've got sporadic potholes, and they're 300, 400, 500 feet between them, and they're just isolated potholes, that you might patch the potholes and just chip seal it and try to squeeze a couple more years out of it. So there's a large variety. Since I knew you were coming in, and I went back and researched some stuff, Road 14 south of 23 is one that I can think of where the whole 6 miles was crappy. It was salvageable, but there isn't anything in that 6 miles that we could have chip sealed or patched or blade laid. So it got the whole thing. It got 6 miles of blade lay, and then it got 6 miles of overlay on top of it. That's the one that I can think of where we did the whole road segment. But what I did on what's that? It was a 6 mile piece.
South of
23. I'm saying clear down on the south end. I'm giving examples of what you're, what you're describing is pretty accurate. Your representation of the road. But that's the same thing, that's kind of how I have to address things right now until we get through the cycle. Some of these roads, the Lake Road is another one that got chip sealed. It got a mile of asphalt, and when I say the Lake Road, I'm talking the road to Pierpont. And then it got overlaid, and it got some patches, and the whole thing got chip sealed, and I have it in, I don't know, the next 3 years, we're going to make it through there again, and we'll probably overlay most of it. So, And then a question about when potentially we would finish 14. In 2019, we'll be doing some work on 11. If you look at the map, I got all 9 miles blocked out. We're probably, I know there's at least 2 miles in there that we're not going to be paving. They'll just get chipped. But that would be a time when I'll go back to the close by roads. We'll see how the spots that we didn't, the ones that we just chip sealed on 14 are all the way up to North Dakota, and you kind of keep looking at them to see if they fail bad. But I can stand here all day and defend what I did. We've done it. I've been doing it the same way for the last 4 or 5 years. Doesn't mean that it's right, but when you take it into the context of the big picture and everything we're trying to do, I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to do the same thing next year until they tell me not to. And I would be happy, you want me to come up and take you up on 14 and show you how I come to those conclusions. It's hard to do on 14 now that it's already covered up. But I'll come and get you when we go over, I do the Tacoma Park Road is one that'll get paved next year, and I'll show you the difference. Even on that one, there's 2 miles in that aren't going to get new asphalt on them because the chip seal or the current situation can last a little bit longer. So, you had told me the other day that I was foolish and inefficient, and I went back and I looked through our costs of what we did up there. I'm very comfortable with our per ton costs on everything we did on that, and I compared it to some of the other places where we have had liens paved, other places where we paved, one place where going into Mansfield that a out-of-state contractor paved, and our numbers are all right in the same range. It's all anywhere from 75 to 90 bucks a ton. Your distance from the plants obviously increases your per ton cost a little bit. But, I went back through, trust me, Paul, when someone's going to come in, I go back and try to find what it is you're going to beat me up on, and there's nothing that I did that I'm uncomfortable with or the way I came to my conclusions. Doesn't mean that, it means we're not seeing it the same way. I'm not discounting your evaluations, but if there's a road that I can squeeze a couple more years out of by putting a $20,000 chip seal on it instead of a $150,000 overlay, then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it next year, and I'm going to do it the year after that. That's just my approach, and if these people become uncomfortable or enough backlash from the public, but I got to keep working the system the way I'm doing it right now if we have any hope of, all we do now is lose ground slower. But, so, that's my sense of what I did.
Well, I guess, Dirk, I wish you'd have came out, though, in the last 6 weeks, or even you, Chair Kepley, and talked to me personally out there. I didn't want to come in here. I don't know if you guys were evading. You both said that, so you're busy, I'm busy too, but I could come in to see you easier than you could see me. I'm not doubting your bids and your contracts. My thought was, if you'd have contracted that done, and you'd have said, I want a new overlay from 103 to 123, and would have you said, oh, by the way, you don't have to overlay 117 to 118?
Yeah, I did that last year. Right here. No, I took down my last year's map, but right here on Road 23 this was a place where I was hoping to at least address, half of that, either get from 37 over to 18 or from 18 to 16. Well, what ended up happening is we did a little bit out here. Liens did it. We had a bridge in here that they put some bridge ends on for us and then paved about another mile of it, and I called them up and said, stop. The other thing, just because you brought it up, the cost of hiring a contractor to pave and the county to pave in raw dollars is almost a dead heat. The problem is the budget impact is significantly different because it's about $30,000 a ton in labor, $30,000 a mile or so in labor. So if we do it with our forces, the way it impacts the budget is less because that labor and stuff comes out of a different line. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that it's cheaper for us to do it, but the budget impact's a lot weaker. I'm not sure that I would hire a contractor to do a 15-mile overlay just because of that. But what you're describing is, if I'm gonna hire Leans on our hourly, or Doug Bra, or Bituminous Asphalt out of Ortonville, Minnesota to do something for us, they damn well better do from here to here to here if that's what we're requesting. And they don't have trouble with that. And I don't know. I'm not saying that your logic is wrong, but you're never gonna look at it like I look at it.
Well, the interesting to me, Dirk and Commissioners, is it was your discretion then, with the approval from the commission, that we're gonna overlay, 14 miles from 103 to 117. We're gonna overlay that whole stretch.
Yep.
And that was agreed upon, evidently, or you changed your mind, and then from 117 to 123, you approximately did half of it in chip sealed 3 miles.
Yep. I'd say that's accurate.
Pretty close.
Am I mistaken? I thought there was times where you started that project up north and you said, this has taken a lot more than what I thought it was going to take.
Yep, and that's...
Because you don't know some of that until you get into the project, how much of the materials you're going to be using.
The example on this one specifically is the amount of blade lay that was required to get the road level enough so that we could overlay it with the paver. And that number ended up being way out of whack.
Because that resulted in the 3 miles between the 5 was supposed to be done this year, and those folks are still waiting, and hopefully next year it'll work in, but, you know, there's things that you have to sacrifice to do it right.
Now, and going forward, a little bit of what Paul's alluding to, I'm trying not to be so optimistic. Maybe that's one of my faults. I'm too damn optimistic on what we might be able to accomplish, but, so if you look at us going forward, there's less and less of these 2-inch overlays that are gonna be in here, until we can get things to correct, you know, if I can get through the cycle once or twice, it'll be better. But Rachel brings up a good point. That's why that didn't get paved, and that's also why this only got a couple miles paved on it. Because I'm talking the equivalent of probably 3 or 4 miles of overlay is what this overran up there.
I was just thankful when you had said that. My worry was that 1 mile going into Stratford. Those folks have been waiting how long for one paved road that we promised them years ago, that every community in the county would have one paved road, and you got that done this year, so I know those folks are ecstatic.
But that was only 3,000 feet. 3,000 feet out of 670 miles is nice, but what did it really impact?
Got longer for 16.
Right.
But Dirk, you will agree with me every time you've seen it. Some of them are real smooth.
Yep.
Every time you see them, it changes.
Yep.
You could feel it. A lady trucker came, well, not a trucker, well, pickup trailer, came to our place and she said, "Boy, I love 14, but she said, what happened to the mile north of you?" I said, "If you think that's bad, go further south. There's about 7 more scenes, you know, because of what you did." The roughness doesn't bother me. I guess I'm going to say I don't pay taxes, property taxes anymore. And I drive a car. But I know that the truckers don't love those seams. And those 2 culverts that you didn't overlay, at least 2, because I think we talked about that. You said I covered most of the culverts. Yeah, you did. You probably covered 3 or 4 of them. But you left 2 in the stretch there that are pretty rough yet, you know, over the culverts. So I just cannot believe, if I would plan something, that I wouldn't say, okay, we got enough contract or enough money, whatever way you want to say, when you got to 122 or whatever, 121, if you would have just overlaid it till then and then waited till next year. But it appears to me that you had in your mind, we're going to do something to 123. Okay, it costs too much, so let's pick out a stretch here and here and here and just chip seal it.
Yep. I'd say that that's pretty close.
And I know you talk about a 2-inch overlay, and I walked up from 7 to 11 this year, both sides. I would say that your 2-inch overlay is a minimum amount. You know, it's hard for me to tell walking for sure. You had to gravel a lot of approaches.
Yep.
Because of the sharp embeddedness. And we talked about the drop-off on some of 14 with what you put on. There's some places to me, it looks like you got 4 to 5 inches of new overlay.
I would say if you're in an area where we blade laid and then we overlaid it, then yeah, that's probably what's there. I can figure it out. I don't have it,
No,
I have it by the road segment. I mean, I can
That's
figure
all
that
in
backwards.
technicalities and protocol, but it still just blows my mind that you could go 14 straight miles and not pick a mile in them 14 miles.
This is where I knew we were finally gonna get to this. So what you're saying is I should have, one of those was,
No, I'm not
was
saying-
better than
no.
up by your house, and I should have taken asphalt from up there and put it down. Is that, I mean, that's where
Well,
you're
not
at.
really. If you was gonna not do something, you probably shouldn't have did 118 to 119, because that's where you had the big problem quite a few years ago, and that stretch between my house and my son's house was all sealed and
Yep.
everything redid.
Yep.
That mile was probably one of the better miles. Not the best, I'm not saying, but it was one of the better. It sure didn't need it as bad as them new culverts needed it south of me. I'm just saying, you know, the roughness of them, but, so we're gonna disagree in the technicalities, Dirk, but I still think when you do a stretch of road, I don't know, but 5 years from now, 4 years from now, do you think that those spots you didn't overlay will break up better or not break up as bad as some of the new overlay?
Oh, no, the parts that we only sealed will definitely fail before the rest of it will.
Yeah. So why don't you do, if you only had to go to X, why didn't you stop at 121 and then go on from there next year?
Well, that's
Or
the
the year
thing, you
after?
keep going to the next year. So if we'd have done what you're suggesting, let's say I'd have got to Road 7.
Well, you'd have got further than that, you only missed doing 3 miles.
Well, there's 3 up there, there's 1 mile south of Heine's.
I'm not, no, from 7 to 7, 9, and 11. From 7 to 11, you did about half of it. Or 117, 6 miles, you did half of it.
Is
You
there any,
did 14 straight miles.
is there any questions from the commissioners on,
I'm
tactics or
I'm wasting your time and my
No,
time.
you're not. It's just 2 different philosophies, and I just want to know if there's issues with how the commissioners think Dirk's doing his job. We need to have that discussion, but I'm not hearing anybody questioning him, so what I'm thinking
well,
is that
they
they
won't.
agree with what he's saying and his
No,
philosophy.
you're gonna all agree.
Well, Paul, when
But-
you go out in the county, and I don't get out to all the county roads, but I used to drive 14 with a semi coming in down 14 to the elevator, and last year it was terrible.
Well, it still is.
Well, I've hauled 3 loads of beans. I don't do a lot of trucking off that road, but it's 90% better than it was last year.
From where to where?
Out of 9 into that part. I come out on County Road 9 and I go south into the elevator. And it's 90% better than it was last year with my semi, with the
I'm
load
not-
of beans on it.
Okay.
That's,
From 9
that was
to
an,
11.
right, from
I
9.
wouldn't say it's, well, I wouldn't argue too much.
So,
Those-
it's an improvement, maybe it wasn't 100% the way you'd like it, but then, have you ever driven County Road 6 out of Richmond?
Yeah,
What do you think of that road?
it's not good.
Well, it's far from being good, but when you start going county-wide and you look at the roads, we only have X amount of dollars to make all our roads work. So you're saying, well, let's just do this road and do it really good, and the heck with these other 20 miles. Dirk is trying to please more people in the county, I think is what his theory is. And, you know, whether you can call that right or wrong, that's everybody's opinion. But, you know, I support what he does, and I'm not saying he did your road 100% perfect, but it's 90% better than what I drove on last year.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners?
Would you agree with that? I mean, you know, I guess that I'm trying to look out that he's,
Stratford got done.
there's other patrons in the county that need assistance with some of their roads that are much worse than what 14 is now. I mean, we've got some roads that are in really bad
Disagree
shape.
with that. But I've been told that 14 is one of the highest usable roads, and what do you think with the new soybean plant, with the people coming into 14 from the east and the west are not gonna go to 12 and come back, they're gonna pick up 14. And I can't believe that you're not gonna have truckers complaining from 126 on in, and to me, maybe you better not even fix that if you're not gonna put load limits on that next spring.
Well, I'm hoping when the Hall Bridge gets done, we can divert some of those
You
semis
will to
and
the-
trains.
Well, not the soybean truckers.
Well, you know, I guess, you know, I travel that road, and there is, just like you said, there is a ton of traffic on 14 from 11 into Aberdeen down to 12.
It picks up further north, it's North Dakota cars.
Yeah.
When I walk, I'm gonna say half of the cars are North Dakota cars,
I
unfortunately.
would agree with that, especially on the north end of that, it's a lot of North Dakota traffic coming to town on that.
So we're not gonna agree, so I wasted my time and your time, but I still don't think it's a very efficient use of rebuilding roads when you come in and pick out 1 mile and leave a mile. I mean, and that was his decision with your approval, so.
Well, we do appreciate you taking the time to come in and address it. I mean, that's
We
the only
don't-
way you get better is by questioning how we do things currently, so.
We don't micromanage Dirk. He manages his department, and we base our evaluation on what gets done.
Well, that's why I said I wish Dirk would've came out and we'd have walked at some areas and drove some areas, you know. Because I think I left Dirk that day and I says, give me a call now.
Yep. No, I'm
I
not,
never got a
you're
call.
100% accurate. It was about 6 weeks, 2 months ago. You said come up when you had a minute.
And I talked to Chair Kipley 3 weeks ago, give or take. I said, come on out. let's-
And I said I would drive it, and I did.
Yeah, but I thought you was gonna call me.
No, I never said I was gonna call you.
Okay, sorry, I
That's
thought you
okay.
would call me.
But I did drive it multiple
So I
times.
said, yeah, anybody can drive it. You drive it in a car, it's fine. I'm not disagreeing.
And I did the same thing, Paul. Last Tuesday after
Or
our
call me
commission
next
meeting,
time.
I drove up to 10. As I got up to 10, turned around, I called Dirk. I had him on the phone asking what exactly your concerns were. Because when I drove it, again, in my pickup, I thought I was on a pretty damn good road.
You was,
Yep.
disagree.
And that's why I didn't totally understand exactly. And I pulled in, you weren't around, so.
No,
And I should
Well,
have called.
we are
I should
gonna-
have called.
We appreciate the time, Paul.
No.
Thank you very much.
I'm not,
I was asked by one of the commissioners that we need a quick break, so we're gonna take a break and we'll reconvene here in about 4 minutes, okay?
thank you.
Back from our brief break.
The two maybes are over there.
Let's go to Max's list.
Okay. Minutes from October 10th.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Hanson. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Moved by Hanson,
Second.
seconded by Fishback. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Moved by Feldheim. Is that with the correction or addition, or we wait?
I will second it, but I would like to also direct Gary to research whether there's anyone available with experience works to aid in the planning and zoning office to help get caught up on the work.
Are you okay with that addition? Okay, so we've got a motion from Feldheim, second from Sutton. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Sheriff's report.
Move it.
Moved by Fishback, seconded by Hanson. Questions on that report? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Authorize advertising a budget supplement for Phase 3 jail project. This is the carryover expenses from the 2.4 million that weren't completed in 16. It's 444,000
And change.
and change, yeah.
I'll move it.
Moved by Sutton,
Second.
seconded by Feldheim. Questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Auditor's report of account.
Moved by Hanson,
Second.
seconded by Sutton. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And that's all I have.
Okay, Gary?
I just need a quick exec for legal.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to go in executive session for legal. Motion by Feldheim, seconded by Hanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll be in executive session. All right, we are back, and no action as a result of executive session. Did anything else come in while we were?
Nope.
Okay. Gary, did you have other items?
Nope.
Larry? Anything from the commissioners in attendance?
Before we adjourn.
Okay, motion from Fishback, second from Hanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll be adjourned until next week.
Okay.